You're the one in charge of our family's wallet, aren't you? Haley's voice, blasting from the smartphone speaker, carried neither shame nor the slightest hint of guilt. It was bright and almost cruel, as if she were simply asserting a perfectly natural right. For a moment, I couldn't understand what she meant. Even as a joke, it was far too malicious. And yet, my sister on the other end of the line was laughing happily. How did things end up like this? Everything began to fall apart just a few weeks ago. It was the night of our parents' 30th anniversary celebration party. It was a special day I had been preparing for months. The venue was a top-floor restaurant overlooking the Manhattan night skyline. The congratulatory voices of gathered relatives and friends blended with the soothing live jazz, filling the room with a warm, festive energy. In my hand was a small gift envelope. Inside was a first-class ticket to Japan, the trip my mother had always dreamed of. She had always spoken with sparkling eyes about Kyoto's gardens and cherry blossom avenues. I had long promised myself that once I found success in my career, I would make that dream come true for her with my own hands. I booked the finest ryokan, secured flights to match the peak of cherry blossom season, and even included a pottery class she would surely love. My entire gratitude and affection wrapped into one gift. Just as I was waiting for the perfect moment to present it, it happened. Everyone, please look outside. A stir rose at the restaurant entrance as Haley swept in. Wearing a form-fitting silk dress, she twirled dramatically and walked toward our parents with a radiant smile. Then, with theatrical flair, she pointed toward the window. Beyond the restaurant's massive glass windows, down at the ground floor entrance, an unbelievable scene unfolded. A blazing crimson Mercedes-Benz. A giant gold bow sat on its hood. Haley Morgan grabbed a microphone and proclaimed proudly, "Mom, Dad, only the best is worthy of you. This is my small gift for you." Thunderous applause and cheers shook the restaurant. Mom grew teary-eyed, and Dad was at a loss for words, staring only at the bright red car. What a wonderful daughter she is. Haley is truly devoted to her parents. Everyone praised her, and the moment belonged entirely to Haley. I stepped back, still clutching the small envelope in my hand. It felt as though I were the only one left behind. When the commotion finally settled and dinner resumed, I gathered my courage and approached my parents. Mom, Dad, I also have something for you." When I offered the small envelope, my mother glanced at it for only a brief moment. "Oh, thank you, Kendall." Then she immediately returned to her conversation with a relative beside her. Dad didn't even try to meet my eyes. Their gaze remained fixed on the red sports car gleaming outside the window. My heartfelt gift lost its value like dust before the shine and roar of a $60,000 engine. Haley looked at me and smiled triumphantly. I barely remember how I got home that night. All I clearly remember is the cold, heavy stone that sat in my chest. The next day, I decided to bury myself in work. By drowning in mountains of documents and endless meetings, I tried to escape the humiliation of the previous night. In the middle of this, while checking my credit card statement online, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was an amount printed that I had never seen before. Billing source: Mercedes-Benz of Manhattan. Charge amount: $60,000. My fingertips turned cold. It had to be a mistake. Hacking or some kind of system error. However, the moment I saw the billing date, I felt all the blood drain from my body. It was the date of my parents' anniversary party. No, that couldn't be possible, but a small voice whispered in the back of my mind. If it were Haley, she might actually do it. At that moment, a memory resurfaced in my mind. It was a few days before the party. It was the day Haley suddenly appeared at my apartment. I just finished my nails nearby, so I thought I'd stop by. She sat down on my sofa without an appointment, as she always did. After chatting idly for a while, she suddenly let out an exaggerated cry. "Oh no, my favorite deli's limited sandwich is only available until today, isn't it? It's really close from here, so please, Kendall, can you go buy it for me? I promise I'll pay you back later." "You can go buy it yourself," I said exasperatedly. Then she replied in a sweet, whining voice. My feet hurt from these heels right now. "Fine, I'll be right back, so just relax." I also had some shopping to do, so I thought it wouldn't hurt to combine it with my errands. Then I left the apartment with only my wallet. It was just about 30 minutes, stopping by the supermarket, buying the deli sandwich, and walking back. In that brief span of time, everything happened. While I was away, the updated premium card delivered as registered mail must have been received by Haley, who was in my apartment. Then she must have activated the card, slipped it into her own wallet, and accepted the sandwich from me with a perfectly innocent face. I didn't even know a new card had arrived. All the pieces clicked together like a puzzle. Before I realized it, I was dialing Haley's number. Only the ringing echoed dully through the quiet room. "Hello, Kendall. Why are you so flustered?" Her voice from the other end was bright and carefree, as if she were at a nail salon. I forced myself to swallow the rising anger and tried to keep my voice as calm as possible. "Haley, there's a $60,000 charge on my card statement from Mercedes-Benz. Do you know anything about this?" A moment of silence. Then, unbelievably, a burst of cheerful laughter came through the speaker. "Oh, that! You're so impatient, Kendall. It was supposed to be a surprise, and you already found out." "A surprise?" I could hear my own voice growing low and cold. "Buying a car with money someone worked so hard to earn? That's theft, Haley. It's a crime. Do you understand what you've done?" On the other end of the line, I heard Haley let out a sigh, the kind that said she was genuinely fed up. "Crime? Don't be so dramatic, Kendall. Listen, this is a gift for Mom and Dad, right? Meaning it's something for the family. For the family, it's only natural that you pay. After all, you're the successful one." "What did you just say?" It felt as if all the blood in my body surged backward. My entire body trembled, and I could barely stand. Haley seemed to be enjoying my distress, giggling softly on the other end of the phone. "Oh, didn't you hear me? I'm telling you, you've always been this family's wallet. You live for your work. I have the talent for making people happy. It's called putting the right person in the right place. You earn the money, and I use it to make the family happy. Isn't that a perfect division of roles?" Every word she said was twisted beyond belief. My goodwill, my love for our family, my hard work, everything was warped into an obligation in her mind. "Then where is my card now?" She giggled again before responding. "Oh, that? It's gone. On the way home from signing at the dealership, I cut it up into tiny pieces with scissors and threw it in the trash. If you still had it, you'd find out I used it, right?" From the start, she intended to destroy all evidence and dump the entire debt onto me. A malicious, calculated, perfectly executed crime. She was no longer someone with whom a sane conversation was possible. I said nothing more and simply ended the call in silence. Haley is the one who's wrong. My parents would never approve of something so absurd. With trembling hands, I dialed my parents' number. My last hope. When my mother answered, I desperately and concisely explained the situation. On the other end, she remained silent for a long time. When she finally broke the heavy silence, what I heard was not comfort or anger as I had expected. "Kendall, how could you say such things about your own sister?" "What?" Haley only wanted to make the family happy. Maybe her way was a little flashy, but everything she did was for us. And yet you accuse her of being a criminal over a mere $60,000? As sisters, shouldn't you just pay it quietly? We're family. Helping each other is normal. No matter how many times I insisted this is a crime, she always added, maybe it wasn't right for her to use your card. But her main point never changed. When my father took the phone midway through the conversation, he was exactly the same. "Kendall, I understand your point, but Haley did what she did with good intentions. You're successful in New York and you have more than enough income. There's no need to make a fuss just because your sister created a bit of debt. The best path as a family is to resolve this peacefully." Peacefully, meaning I should quietly shoulder the $60,000 debt. The fact that I was the victim of fraud and theft was insignificant to them. To preserve the false harmony they called family peace, my pain could simply be erased. At that moment, I heard my mother shouting through the phone, "Oh, honestly, you're such a difficult child." Then, with a rustling sound, I sensed she had picked something up. "In that case, Kendall, I'll return the Japan trip tickets you gave us at the party. Just cancel them right now. Use that money to pay for Haley's car." Those tickets were supposed to be a gift for my parents. They were supposed to be the crystallization of years of gratitude. Why, wasn't that your dream, Mom? The voice I managed to force out was thin, trembling, and barely audible even to myself. Then my mother let out a long, deep sigh before delivering the final blow. A dream? Yes, maybe. But an intangible trip like that could never have as much value as a $60,000 car sitting right in front of us. At that moment, something snapped inside me. It was the thread of hope. The fragile but undeniable thread that had barely held together my belief in what I called family. It wasn't just Haley. My father and mother, every one of them, saw me the same way. My worth was measured only by the money I earned. I wasn't Kendall, a human being. I was simply a convenient wallet. I understand perfectly now, Mom. A shockingly calm voice came out of my mouth. Then I ended the call without another word. I would never cry for them again. I would never sacrifice myself for them again. And I would never allow them to trample me again. There was no hesitation left. I tapped a name in my smartphone's contact list. Adrian Cole. He is my company's legal counsel, and the person I trust most with any legal matter. After several rings, his calm voice came through. Kendall, is something wrong? Yes, Adrian, it's an emergency. I'll get straight to the point. I've been the victim of identity theft and large-scale credit card fraud, and the perpetrator is my sister. I sensed Adrian gasp softly on the other end of the line, but he regained his composed tone almost immediately. Okay, I need to grasp the full situation. Please stay calm and tell me everything from the beginning. Adrian listened quietly without interrupting even once until I finished speaking. Kendall, what you've just told me is not a simple financial dispute between family members. This is a highly malicious criminal case involving multiple charges. After a long silence, he spoke in a grave yet unmistakably firm voice. First, Haley obtaining the credit card delivered to your home without your permission. That may constitute mail theft. Next, activating that card illegally and using it as if it were her own. That is unequivocal identity theft. And most significantly, using the stolen identity and card to purchase a $60,000 item. That is credit card fraud. Given the amount involved, this is likely not a state-level issue, but could be treated as a federal crime, a very serious offense. Noticing that I was at a loss for words, Adrian continued gently, but clearly, your parents' actions cannot be ignored legally either. His voice dropped even lower. They knew about the fraudulent act, yet they pressured you to pay and attempted to cover it up. This could be seen as conspiracy to commit fraud or even aiding and abetting after the fact. Kendall, you are essentially standing alone against a criminal organization operating under the name of family. His description was painfully accurate. The uncomfortable swamp called family that had been consuming me for years, its true nature was a gathering of accomplices built upon my sacrifice. I took a deep, steady breath. I understand, Adrian. His precise analysis turned the doubts lingering deep within me into an unshakable conviction. There was nothing more I needed to hear. I already know what I want to do. I will make them answer for every crime they've committed under the law. I'll do whatever it takes. So I want your best knowledge and experience supporting me. This is my fight. I heard Adrian quietly inhale on the other end of the line, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a new tone, one that sounded like deep respect. Got it, Kendall. I accept your resolve. I will defend you with everything I have. With those words as the signal, my counterattack began. The moment I ended the call with Adrian, I immediately contacted the credit card company's fraud reporting line. Calmly, but with an unwavering voice, I said, my card was stolen by my sister and used for $60,000 in unauthorized charges. I could hear the change in the representative's tone instantly. The card was immediately suspended, and I was informed that an investigation would begin. Next, I headed to the police station. In front of a detective, I submitted a sworn statement detailing everything that had happened. Printed card statements, call logs with Haley, notes from my conversations with my parents. The detective examined the stack of evidence I handed over, nodded with a grave expression, and said, "This is a serious case. We'll begin investigating immediately," then gave me a formal report receipt with the case number written on it. Finally, using the legal notice template Adrian had sent me as a guide, I wrote a concise message in my own words and sent it to the three of them at once. I have filed a police report today regarding identity theft and credit card fraud committed by Haley Morgan. Please direct all further communication through my legal representative, Adrian Cole's office. The moment I pressed send, it felt as though the heavy chains that had clung to me for years shattered with a loud crack. Only a few hours later, it happened. My silent smartphone suddenly began to vibrate violently, as if possessed. On the display, calls from Haley popped up at a rate of dozens per minute. Voicemail notifications, text message notifications, alerts poured in so fast they filled the screen in an instant. Her messages were all self-centered. "I thought you were joking. Are you seriously going to sue me?" "I'll be arrested. What are you going to do about it?" Naturally, I didn't respond to any of it. Even as night fell, the storm didn't let up. Soon, calls from unfamiliar numbers began ringing nonstop. Haley was likely borrowing phones from friends or acquaintances, desperately trying to reach me. By shutting them out completely, a calmness settled over me, something I hadn't felt in weeks. The next morning, I found a short email from Adrian. "Both Haley Morgan and your parents have contacted this office in a state of panic. Naturally, we informed them only that all communication must be in writing, and we have ceased responding, so please rest assured. Also, one more thing. The credit card company appears to have begun investigating the vehicle in coordination with the dealership. There will likely be significant developments soon." That significant development arrived much sooner than expected. That afternoon, during my break at work, I received a text message from my cousin Stella. "Kendall, something huge is happening. There's a tow truck in front of your parents' house." A photo was attached to the message. In it, Haley was yelling something in front of a massive tow truck, while my parents stood beside her, bewildered, looking up at the sky in despair. And the tow truck's heavy steel arm was just about to hoist that crimson Mercedes-Benz into the air. It was likely the credit card company seizing the car as an asset purchased with a fraudulently used card. I stared at the photo quietly, without any emotion. The sports car that had shone so brightly that night was hanging in midair. I saved the photo and sent Stella only one reply. "That's fine. They brought it on themselves." The seizure of the car was only the beginning of their nightmare. Through Adrian, I received request after request from the police for cooperation, along with detailed reports from the credit card company. Haley's signature on the dealership contract, security camera footage, the IP address used to activate the card. Piece by piece, the evidence of her actions continued to pile up. There was no way she could escape by claiming it had all been a joke. The next morning, when I woke up, the notifications on my smartphone had increased even more. They were countless messages from relatives, friends, and even coworkers. Every single message included the same screenshot. It was a Facebook post from my mother. It featured a painful-looking selfie of her crying, accompanied by a long message. "Our family is falling apart. Our younger daughter, Kendall, is treating her own sister, Haley, with unimaginable cruelty. Haley only wanted to make us happy and asked her financially comfortable sister for just a little help. And yet Kendall called her a fraud, reported her to the police, and declared she was cutting ties with her family. How could something so heartbreaking happen?" Overnight, the post had received hundreds of likes and sad reactions, and the comments were overflowing with sympathy for my mother and accusations against me. What a terrible thing. Family should always come first. Success doesn't just make people rich, it makes their hearts poor too. The tragic heroine persona my mother had so skillfully crafted. Against that, the truth held no power whatsoever. I was the cold, greedy villain who abandoned her family, and Haley was the pitiful victim whose pure filial devotion had been trampled. In the face of that perfectly constructed story, I had been cast as the isolated villain with no support. If this had been the old me, I might have been devastated by such transparent lies and manipulative theatrics, crying as I begged someone to believe my innocence. But the person I have become is different. I opened my laptop and began drafting a new Facebook post. No emotional words were necessary. I simply wrote out the facts, calmly, thoroughly, in strict chronological order. Since my mother, Evelyn Morgan, has chosen to discuss private family matters publicly, I will now share the full story she conveniently omitted from her post. With that introduction, I laid everything bare. Then I attached every piece of digital evidence I had gathered, one image file at a time. A screenshot of my credit card statement under my name. The recorded audio of Haley mocking me and calling me the wallet of the family. The recorded message of my mother telling me to cancel the trip and turn it into money. It was a complete list of irrefutable evidence, capable of annihilating emotional lies and sympathy narratives in an instant. The moment I clicked post, the reaction exploded at a staggering speed. People who had been praising my mother's post just moments earlier began flooding my post with comments of shock and outrage. I can't believe this. If this is true, the mother and sister are monsters. Wallet. What a horrible thing to say. My heart hurts for Kendall. The tide shifted far faster, and far more dramatically than I had imagined. Sympathy turned to anger, empathy to contempt, and every bit of it was then aimed squarely at my mother and Haley. 15 minutes later, the very post my mother had written so confidently vanished without a trace or explanation. But it was far too late. A false post becomes a digital tattoo that remains forever. And the reaction didn't come only from strangers. Relatives and friends who had written sympathetic comments under my mother's post were hastily sending me private messages. "I'm so sorry. I commented without knowing the real situation." "You were telling the truth all along." Their quick change of heart stirred no emotion in me anymore. The exposure of truth I unleashed on social media shattered the small community they lived in. A few weeks later, Haley was formally charged with credit card fraud and identity theft. When Adrian informed me of the news over the phone, I simply answered, "I see." Strangely, I felt no joy or sense of accomplishment. Only a cool, detached understanding that this was the natural consequence. Even more shocking news came from Adrian a few days later. "The prosecutor's office has informed us that they have begun investigating your parents, Samuel Morgan and Evelyn Morgan, on suspicion of conspiracy to commit fraud." After Haley was indicted, my parents reportedly told investigators, "We had no idea what our daughter had done," and "We are victims too." However, the recorded audio and emails I had submitted to the police completely destroyed that lie. The evidence clearly showed that they recognized the crime, actively concealed it, and demanded money from me. They are now in a highly likely position to stand in court as Haley's co-conspirators, Adrian continued. Hearing that for the first time, a heavy weight rose in my chest. It wasn't sadness, it was a kind of emptiness. Knowing that the long history of our family was ending in such an ugly, hopeless way. By their own lies and greed, they had destroyed their family with their own hands. Months passed after the trial concluded. Haley received a guilty verdict with probation, and my parents were ordered to pay fines so heavy that they lost most of their savings as co-conspirators to fraud. Since the day the sentences were handed down, I cut off all contact with them and lived peacefully at last, protected by the legal boundaries established through my attorney. They vanished completely from my life. One day, I received a call from my cousin Stella for the first time in a while. She told me that my parents had sold the home they had lived in for many years to cover legal fees and the enormous fines, and that they are now living in a small apartment in the suburbs. My father had lost his position at the company due to the scandal and was forced into an early retirement under humiliating circumstances. My mother, ever since the incident on social media, has become completely isolated from her former friends and now rarely leaves the house. And Haley, now a convicted felon, cannot possibly find legitimate employment. And from what I hear, she continues to rely financially on my parents while living a frugal and diminished life. I quietly ended the call and looked up at the New York sky spreading out beyond my window. I no longer feel sorrow for the family I have lost, because what I protected is not merely my assets. It is my own dignity and the future I would walk toward freely from this moment on.